Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to show what I was working on the last week or two. This is about a 40 or 50-year-old folding leaf table that a in-law of mine actually gave me to restore. It's a table that his father ate on when he was a young kid, so he wanted me to see what I can do and if I can bring it back to life. If you look closely, there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. You can't really see it here, but later on you'll see that a lot of the pieces were cupped. That's very old. It was falling apart at some point, and so they were trying to keep it together with brackets. Some of them looked store-bought, some of them looked homemade. I recommend doing projects like this. It kind of helps you understand the building process on how to do things in the future for you. It gives you better ideas for yourself in the future. And if you're going to start taking this stuff apart or trying to refurbish furniture, label everything. Don't lose anything. Don't think you can put them to the side, because you will lose them. Recommend these Bosch drills. This set comes in two. One's an impact, one drill. And it's a lot better than the DeWalt's that I typically use and that I really like, but it allows me to get into tighter spaces and it's not a lot of torque. So I'm able to manage what I'm trying to do here. You can kind of see the gunk built up over the years. Looking back at it, I probably should have used gloves. There may not be anything wrong with it, but it just feels like you should have gloves on. As you can see, my work table does not have bench dogs. I don't even have clamps on it, like a wood clamp that I can use. I typically use a scrap piece, clamp it down. I use it to hold the material while I'm doing things like this. Using that scraper made light work of trying to remove some of the grit that was already on the table. I'm sure some of it was actual wood, but a lot of it was just very nasty thing. I don't know, spaghetti or something. This process alone was probably 5 hours. It was very long, very tedious. And it didn't matter how many times I went over the board, it just seemed like I wasn't getting it all. So I just kept going until I started actually seeing wood. I kind of slowed it down here so you can kind of see the piles that I'm scraping off here. If you want to see bigger piles, you can probably find them on my shorts. Left side is scraped, right side still needs a lot of work. Another situation where I wish I had some sort of clamping ability on my workbench, because I decided I need to scrape the edges of the table. I'm not applying too much pressure here, but I need to get the rest of that off. I don't want to send any of this dirty wood through the planer or through my table saw. Start ripping all the pieces down to manageable sizes so I can put them through my planer. This was the only piece that had this problem. I decided to just glue it up. I didn't want to keep ripping boards down. I don't want the table to be smaller than it has to be. Looking back at it, I probably should have used more glue. So if that's something you're going to try to attempt for your projects, use a lot of glue. Don't be stingy. Alright, so this is just one piece that was cupped. You can see it's a little off, but when you start multiplying that with the other 6 or 7 pieces, it'll start adding up pretty quick, and you'll be very disappointed once you start doing your glue up. Since it was cupped, I used a sled. Just put some stop blocks and then send it through the planer. Some of the pieces were so warped I had to use bigger wedges, and that's me showing you that. So I learned this trick a while ago, and this works really well. Get a piece of MDF, glue down your piece, set it to the spot that you need it, and then you can use your flush cut trim bit to get yourself a jointed line. I quickly realized that this was going to take a long time. I had several pieces I would have to do this to, and I needed a faster way. So just like all of us, I went online and I found a faster way, and I'll show you that in a minute. But like I said, this is awesome if you're doing 1 or 2 pieces that are quite big. Smaller pieces, it's just not efficient to do. Turns out great, as you can see. Alright, so I had this scrap piece. I used the level trick to get the edges as square as possible. And then I kind of made, I don't know what we call this, but it's kind of like my jointer table. This is the first time me doing this. I was a little nervous at that stage, at the back end of that cut. I wasn't sure on how to handle that situation. But once you do 4 or 5 of them, you get real fast with it, and you start getting comfortable with the process. That arrow right there is just me showing you the blade, and right behind the blade acts as a second table like a jointer. The middle piece that I'm showing you right now are 2 different pieces and squished together as tightly as I can by hand, and I think it looks great. That lines up just as good as a jointer does. I decided I needed to start marking the wood so I can try to keep that grain in the same direction as possible. I think eventually I lost it, but at the end it all came out really well. If you're going to glue up a tabletop, something like that, that takes multiple pieces, use cauls. And when you're using them, make sure you wrap them with some sort of press and seal, saran wrap, something, so that it doesn't glue down onto your table and you have a nightmare. This didn't take all of my clamps, but it was darn near all of them. One of the pieces, when I was sanding them, just didn't turn out right, so I had to buy a new piece, and I'll show you how I fixed that. This is the first time using this sander. I could never find the actual sanding paper, and then it ripped out of my hand like that. I guess I let go of it. So this is me trying to fix the piece that was bad, and I just used the bandsaw, kind of traced out the line, and then rough cut it, and then I'll go back and sand it to match the left and the right side of that product. And I think at the end, you'll see it turned out really well. But if you could find the router bit, buy the router bit. This whole project was almost all sanding. It was just tons of sanding. I didn't know how I was gonna sand that edge right there. But I remembered again, I'm pretty lazy, so I found this to work okay, and I don't think it damaged any of the edges. I got a drill that I didn't really like, clamped it down to the table, zip tie the trigger, pre-drilled and screwed in a screw right here. So now about as center as I can, so now it spins relatively straight. On the other side, I threw this platform together, just a base, glue, some screws, some legs. For my situation, it was about 6 inches, and I got an old cloth. And that sits on there. Use the sandpaper of your choice, but when you start getting into these grooves, it's hard to get a sheet of sandpaper in there. So I got this abrasive cords, basically string with sandpaper on it, and that'll allow me to get into the finer spots. I needed a break from sanding, so I decided to move over to the brackets. I wanted to try to get all the rust off of it, so I just brushed as much as I could. I bought this gel deruster product from Home Depot, and on the bottle it says continuously keep it wet. Well, I'm not going to do that, so I found a bucket and just filled it up and let it sit there for about 30 minutes to an hour. And then back to wire brushing. Once all that was done, I ended up going and painting them with primer and black spray paint. When I got this table, these two pieces were attached with an old rusted nail. Basically, this was the stretcher, sit like that. You could fold up the wing of the table, spin that around, and then that would hold that end of the table. Well, like I said, with that rusted nail, I don't like the way that looks. So I bought these threaded inserts. I'll put the link in the description. But I'm going to get the smallest size I have, drill the hole, set it in, and then find a bolt, a small bolt, to put this little attachment on there. This way I can guarantee it's never going to just fall out on me. After that is done, I'm going to do one last sanding on this, and then we should be putting it together. So originally all I thought I was going to do is sand the table and get it all squared up and put back together, and the customer was gonna stain it, but he changed his mind and asked me to do it. So you'll see that coming up. I made a mistake here. I made 2 mistakes here. Right now I don't know it, but I forgot to account for the bolt head that needs to go right there. Still don't know it. I put it in there. I think everything's great. I use that same drill bit to mark the underneath product, which is fine, but if you guys have eagle eyes, I'm using the wrong drill bit again. The threaded inserts are bigger than that drill bit. So I had to go back and fix it, and you'll see me realize it here in a second. Oh no, that's right. Let's rewind and I'll show you more detail of what I messed up. I should have separated those drill bits. I understand I needed a bigger drill bit for the bolt head, a smaller one for the threaded insert, but I will explain it here in a minute better. This is actually me using the proper drill bit on the other piece. Use some CA glue, tighten it in there. I did it go back and actually bevel the edges so that threaded insert fits in there better. So you get a scrap piece of wood, and it doesn't really matter about the thickness of it, but it needs to be as thick or bigger than the actual drill bit that you're going to use. In this case, I'm using a 1/2 inch Forstner bit. You drill out your hole, and that's going to be your guide now. Clamp it up the best that you can. I don't have a vise for my woodwork, so I have to do this contraption, several clamps. The scrap wood that you have, this is going to be now called your guide. Get the product that you need, the bigger hole, and put your guide in there. You want to center that hole to the center of the hole that you screwed up on drilling. Now your hole is big enough for the head of the bolt. Now that that was fixed, and I believe that was my only mistake on the whole table, so that's pretty good. Now it's time to start staining. I added a pre-stain conditioner and then I went back and stained it. They say it works better, so we'll see. Putting everything back together is actually pretty easy because I'm just following what the holes were already at. So I just put the brackets where the holes lined up, and I could put it all back together. And I think the black brackets really make the bottom of the table stand out. Not that much people hang out down there, but it makes for a better quality product. I wasn't going to do this originally. I didn't even quote this, but I decided I needed to add some shoes to the table. Just felt that that was the right thing to do. So I found these on Amazon. I'm really happy with them. They feel sturdy. This is what it looked like when I got it in the shop. Oh, let me show you the edge real quick. So I'm going to point to it, but the edge profile right there, you can't even tell. I mean, I think I did pretty good with that. But it was a lot of extra standing. Customers happy, I'm happy, and I thank you guys for watching this. Please go back and look at some of my other videos. Leave some comments down and let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time.